Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. My name is Chris. I'm one of your hosts, and as always, I'm joined by Jim and Alberto. How's it going, guys?
All good, sir.
Very good. Alberto, what's new for you?
It's a little cold down here, but I'll keep my cold comments to myself, seeing as our unseasonable weather is approximately like 65 degrees today.
Yeah, I've had to have the heater on at my house too. It's been unfortunate, in the 40s and 50s down here.
A quick funny story is it's partially funny. our little dog Cruz, which we adopted, which we assume is a Chihuahua, we don't know. He's been kind of hobbling around on one leg. That's not the funny part. Bear with me. So we took him to the vet, and I guess it turns out he's having inflammation. I guess it's real common with small dogs. He's having inflammation problems, and his little knee keeps like dislocating.
Ooh.
But he's not in any pain or discomfort. It hasn't slowed him down. You can rub his leg, move his leg. He doesn't even care. You would never even know other than the fact that he's hobbling. And so the vets told us that they're like, your dog's overweight. And we're like, well, if you don't know what kind of dog he is, how do you know he's overweight?
Yeah.
So the funny thing here is they actually want to do surgery on him. But I'm like, hold on. If weight and inflammation is a problem, I'm like, I have an idea before we sign off for surgery. So starting very soon, he is going, probably not high-fat keto, but he's probably going to go like doggy carnivore. Yeah. And we're going to kind of see what happens. And it'll be interesting because I have a really good idea of what I think is going to happen. But if we can get that inflammation down where his knee is no longer a problem and his weight's no longer a problem, to where he can just hang out and be himself without surgery, that's going to actually be a pretty cool and interesting.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of dedicated dog owners going into not only just a completely carnivore, but a raw carnivore. So raw ground beef or, chunks of beef and that type of thing. So I bet it probably wouldn't cost much to do that for Cruz because, well, he's not that big.
No, he's I think he's 14 pounds right now or something like that, and he could stand to lose like 3, something along those lines. So yeah, this will be a nice little turn of events. We'll see how it goes.
Yep, I agree. I think that he'll do quite well with that. Jim, what's new in your world? I know it's probably a little colder in your part of the United States right now.
Indiana is not quite the subtropic continent of Texas, with all the sun and heat in the 60 degrees, but it has been a little bit chilly up here. So I do Orange Theory Fitness, which is kind of training between treadmill, rower, and free weights. And we started a few days back an 8-week transformation challenge program. So I've kind of slacked over the last several weeks and whatnot. So I've dialed in a little bit and got the macros back in line and different things, and knocked out a couple good workouts, focused on the food a lot more now than I have before. So I'm kind of excited for what happens in the next 8 weeks, and hopefully making some good progress. The unfortunate part was I did not get a lunch today at work, and so at about 3:00, I ordered an unwich from Jimmy John's. So, a sandwich wrapped in lettuce kind of thing. And when it arrived, it was wrapped in French bread. So, so I ended up pulling it apart and for the most part eating the meat and the cheese and did okay. But I work for a bank, and when you're on the teller line, you can't really get sloppy, so to speak. So trying to manage this while hiding it in case a customer walked in or anything was not the most easy thing to do, but we made it through today. So that's where I'm at the moment, sir.
Yeah, not a bad sandwich in a pinch.
No, not bad. So what's new with you, Christopher?
Oh, just lots of work as always. Actually, a little catching up in that regard for some of the things that I had going on. Had lots of extra normal projects that are off my plate at this point. Got them done, so that's good. Constantly, doing new things. We Kung Fu has been proving to be a little, I think, more sustainable than Krav Maga was going to be. So that's kind of been interesting to see, because I've been going to the classes, and it's a lot more work on your form by yourself with a little bit of sparring versus okay, we've warmed up. Now it's time to beat the out of each other. So it's much different attitude and mentality, and I think that I will be less likely to get injured doing the kung fu than I was the Krav Maga, which was actually something that Bertold even said is what happens if you've got a contract and you get hurt. I think that was a very good point that he made, and so with the kung fu coming into play, it's good, and I'm getting to do it at least 1 or 2 nights a week with my wife, which is good too. So
Good.
always good to be able to do things with my wife, who I love. Well, that's that's pretty much it though for me. Trying to get out of white belt right now and all of that. Jim, you found one of the posts recently this week that you thought might be a good subtopic. What was that?
Oh, Chris, we didn't talk about that in our show prep, and now I've forgotten what it was. Oh my gosh, I remember this.
Okay,
I've slept since then. What?
So I was smart enough. I saved it, so I've got it, and I was just going to have you introduce it. So anyway,
Well,
anyway,
we really do, for our listeners. We really do work on this.
yeah. We do. So Travis Larson posted watching Scooby-Doo with the kids tonight,
Oh,
and
yes.
Yeah, and the monster is the gluten mutant. So true.
Yes.
Stay away from the gluten mutant, gentlemen. And then there was pictures of the gluten mutant, and you've got Shaggy and Scooby that are both larger than sumo wrestlers fighting this dog-like thing. I don't know. It's
yeah,
weird.
I got it pulled up now. I grew up loving Scooby-Doo. This was one of my Saturday morning rituals of watching Scooby-Doo. So anytime something like this pops up, it always catches my eye and whatnot. But yeah, the gluten mutant just cracked me up, because you've got Shaggy and Scooby who eat everything inside all the time, and their metabolism is through the flipping roof. And so, and then now So anyway, kudos Travis, one of our longtime members of the Keto Man's Club, for posting that. And it definitely made my afternoon yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much that I forgot about it 24 hours later.
Well, you slept since then. So you slept since then. Heck, if I hadn't saved it via Facebook, I wouldn't have remembered it myself.
There you go.
So, my digital memory was better than yours at the moment, but that's it. So let's go into our shout outs real quick. Alberto, let's start with you.
Well, I'm going to just take the obvious one. I am going to shout out to everybody that bought a t-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. As of now, the t-shirts are at the printer. I talked to our buddy Anthony. I talked to him, Chris. We communicated with our buddy Anthony, and he's going to get things rolling. And he's actually going well above and beyond what is required for the amount of shirts that we're giving a guy that kind of makes t-shirts for a living is almost laughable. But he's taking it very seriously. He's a real cool dude. He's going out of his way above and beyond to meet some requests. And so I guess it's a double shout out. One to Anthony, who's you guys don't know who he is, and one to everybody else that bought a shirt.
Yep, absolutely. We this first round was pretty good, and it should make it that much easier for us to invest into the next round of apparel, whatever that may be.
It will be a good thing. Yeah, I have to see what happens. We still haven't come up with final approval on the Keto Man's Club boxers or Speedos just yet, but there's been some scary but genuine interest in the group, and we'll just leave it at that.
Not going there. Not making that.
Yeah, we'll just shut up on that one.
Yeah.
So, oh goodness. Well, I want to give a shout out. Or go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
No, I was just going to say that I will. I would not be the one that would be helping package those. I'm sorry. I'd have a hard issue, especially knowing who they were going to. I would just have an issue.
Be like Ned Flanders. Looks like I'm wearing nothing at all.
Hey, if Ellen DeGeneres can sell her own underwear, then we can certainly sell our own. So
maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future, yeah. Maybe that's what our gimmick will be at KetoCon. But I'm getting off track here. So. Uh, so my shout out, I've got a two-parter here. The first one is to an individual, Chris Probst, who shared a Transformation Tuesday photo this week. He has been on keto just shy of 2 years. He said he went from over 30% body fat down to 12.7 on the body fat scale here. He didn't put his numbers in the original post, but somebody asked him what his starting weight was, and let me get back to it here. Started out at 365, and he's currently at 247. The thing really about his transformation, I mean, there's many things. As we were talking about before we came on to start recording, I questioned whether or not it was the same guy. But Chris has a couple tattoos that pair up and match and everything. The reason I was a little bit skeptical is because when you go from that 100+ pound difference, a lot of times you're going to have some sagging skin or whatnot. And he is height. I mean, there's abs there. It's an amazing transformation. So a big shout out to Chris for that almost 2 years success story there. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I want to do a quick shout out to all of the admins, moderators in our new group, TKMC Beginners. We're closing in on 200 members, and the group is barely 3 weeks old. A lot of people have heard about us through the podcast. Our friend Mike Gorman had the three of us on a couple of weeks back, and we talked about it there as well. So with it being the first of the year and whatnot, lots of inquiries about it, and it's become a really great resource for men who are new to keto. And so I'm just grateful for everybody that's involved on the leadership side of things, obviously to the guys in the group, but just keeping it running. It started off with gangbusters, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, they're really taking the bull by the horns. We're trying to get the topics going. I think that's something that you have to grow into. Like once the group gets to a certain point or a certain number of posts or something, then they unlock that because I can't find it anywhere. But we're wanting to make sure that we can tag the different questions or things like that for easy answers when people ask questions. So that would be something that would be good. And we're working on all that stuff. So, but that's really honestly being spearheaded by the other admins, not even coming from Jim and Alberto and myself. That's really coming from them. They're taking the bull by the horns in that. So that's excellent. I am going to shout out Mac McKay. He posted overnight, it looks like, but he has just done an amazing job transforming himself over the last 20 months. He says it himself. He's got a little bit of that loose skin that you were talking about, Jim, but he just says, for right now, it just gets tucked under my waistband. For now, I'm happy with it. So he's gone from 315. When he found keto, it was 285. And now he's down to 176, and he looks every bit of it. I have a feeling if he didn't have that loose skin, he'd be showing full abs and all that stuff. So shout out to him for taking the bull by the horns for his own health and really changing not just the way that he looks, I'm sure, but also the way that he feels and his overall health. So. Awesome job as always. Any other business before we get into our guests for the day?
Just thanks to some of the folks who have done first of year reviews for us on our iTunes.
Yes.
I know we'll talk about that more at the end as well, but we've had some nice updated reviews, and we always appreciate those. So thanks for the 2020 reviews. Keep them coming.
Yep, agreed. And I'll give that shout out right now instead of later. We might as well. If you as a listener could take a few moments and go on iTunes or whatever platform you listen, and if you have the option on that platform to leave a review or a rating, it would be a massive help for us to kind of make the engine work, as it were, and try to get the word out more into the algorithm. So we're showing up on charts and things like that, because this is the stories of the people that we're sharing. These are amazing stories that people have really transformed their lives, and that's really something that we want to get into as many hands and as many ears as possible. So that's really there. You can also leave a comment on the Facebook page. We would highly encourage you, if nothing else, to like the Facebook page so that you get notification on your Facebook feed when we post an episode, because that's one of the things that we do. We've kind of gotten the habit. I'll post it there first and then share it to the groups. So if you want to be the first to know when a new episode goes up, that's a great way to go, is to like our Facebook page. You can find the link to that at our website, theketomansclub.com, and you'll be able to get all of the links to all of the groups and pages right there, easy access. So that brings us to our guest. And today we have Ralph Citarella. He is a longtime member and supporter. I'm looking forward to getting to know his background. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, not even the keto related stuff, but give us a little background on who you are, where you are, and all that.
All right. I'm an exterminator / entomologist. I own a pest control company in Bayonne, New Jersey, which is really just across the river from Manhattan, New York. My job takes me around the area. I've also done some speaking on a national, international scale throughout North America as an entomologist. That's enjoyable. I've been playing rugby since I'm 20 years old. I'm now currently a USA Level 200 coach, World Rugby Level 1 coach. I was playing A-side rugby up until the early fall of this year when I had a nasty injury, which kind of reminded me that I'm 42 years old and had no business playing A-side rugby with these young dudes. But it was fun while it lasted. In the off season from rugby and some of my downtime, I studied karate at a school called Kyokushin, and it was a fighting school right here in New Jersey. And I was able to train with some internationally ranked fighters, even though I wasn't really fighting myself. I got to rub some pretty big elbows, so that was excellent. And right now I'm coaching kids rugby, so I'm not really involved in the upper level stuff. I'm just trying to dedicate a decent amount of time to the family and get my health back on track, because it was kind of going a little haywire for a while.
Sure. So let's go right into that. Let's talk about kind of what was going on health wise. What went wrong, and then we'll talk about what you did to get right.
Well, I mean, I guess the easiest way to start this is kind of begin at the beginning. I mean, I said it in a post in the group not too long ago. My first memory of buying clothes was pants in the husky section as a kid. You know, I was always a little load. I was just a pudgy kid. I remember when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I went to my first Weight Watchers meeting to try and get under 200 pounds for 8th grade graduation. Like, just always the fat kid, you know. So after puberty, and I was in high school, I started playing sports. I was playing football on a very big team, and I did wrestle my senior year, although I wasn't too tremendously good at wrestling. But I found I was able to modulate my weight with exercise. So that was big. You know, I was kind of a little bit in control once I started to get that natural testosterone in me. Now, get to college and I'm playing football. I'm 5'11". At college, I was 230 pounds with 36-inch waist. So I wasn't doing body fat at the time, but I was fairly fit and playing offensive line. And I had a shoulder injury my freshman year, and I was lining up for possible surgery. Had some issues with the way the team handled it because I was a redshirt freshman at the time. So I walked away from the football team, and lack of activity. Drinking because I'm sad, eating because I'm sad. I ended up over 250 by the time I was a sophomore. So, and it wasn't a good 250. It was 254 and just a straight load, you know, just all fat, dude. It was terrible. So this was like 1999, and my first bump with keto, and my buddy hands me the Atkins book. I forget the title of the first book that Dr. Atkins came out with. And it was weird. I was working at a steakhouse named Charlie Brown's. It was a blue-collar steakhouse with a salad bar. And we had people coming in that were, well, I'm on the Atkins diet. I'm on the Atkins diet. And it was great. So I started doing the Atkins diet, and I did it as a diet. I did it as that quick fix mentality. And I ended up dropping 30 pounds. And, once I lost the weight, I went back to a traditional diet. Actually, I kind of transitioned through a cyclical ketogenic diet. You guys are familiar with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, One thing I have to say was when I was doing the Atkins diet that first time around, it was like so poorly researched. I read the whole book, and the only thing I really pulled out of it was no carbs. So I wasn't using fat for fuel. I wasn't really doing it the sustainable right way. I was just cutting carbs out and looking for that quick fix of weight loss. I went back into weight training fairly seriously, and I had heard that you can't build, all the usual crap. You can't build muscle on and Alberto's proved us wrong. I proved it wrong just this December. So I did a cyclical ketogenic diet where I was 5 days on, 2 days off, and juggling your lifting schedule around that. And that just became such a stress on the system. I eventually dropped out. But meanwhile, now I'm down to 215 pounds. And I get into rugby. A good friend of mine growing up turns me on to rugby. So I go from, I use that Atkins diet to transition into the rugby mindset where now my workouts consist of a 4 to 6 mile run and an hour bodyweight calisthenic boxing workout, 5 to 6 times a week with maybe a day off peppered in here and there. And through that high level activity, I was able to maintain that body weight. So that's me graduating college and playing rugby and eventually moving back to the area that I'm from. And I got hooked up with the Bayonne Bombers, who was playing first division rugby at the time. So we're playing in different countries. We're playing with and against professional players. Guys are getting signed for my team to play in Europe. Guys that are no longer playing in Europe are coming back are cycling back to the States to play here. And all this is on a traditional diet because things were working okay for me. The activity level was able to sort that out. So things started going wrong about the time that I turned 35 or 36. My triglycerides started to get marginally high. My cholesterol was marginally high. I was technically obese by the BMI standards, but BMI is a bunch of crap. We pretty much all know that. And my doctor at the time was fighting with me to get me on blood pressure medication, which I was running marginally high blood pressure, but she wasn't happy with that. Unfortunately, Doctor and I didn't really communicate that well. So eventually I just to kind of shut her up, I went on the blood pressure medication. And that's when that was 36. And I realized that I couldn't increase activity, clean my diet, and lose weight anymore. So that put me in a spot where now I have to get really into it. So now I have to go down the weigh my food route. So I got myself set up with the LiveStrong app, which I thought was a very good food calculator for the traditional American diet. And I went through the phase where I'm measuring this, weighing that, doing that, modulating my exercise, counting calories, and I was able to get good results. So we're middling success, but working very hard for the next few years. Things really went off the rails when I turned 40. It's just a couple years ago. The LiveStrong stuff that I had been doing gradually reduced effectiveness to the point that I was training and losing nothing like the weight I was expecting to lose. Or 40, I had the moment. I was like, I'm gonna go get a personal trainer. I'm gonna fix my diet. I'm gonna listen to somebody all the way and do what they want me to do. So I went out and did just that. The trainer I found gave me really one of the best weight training programs I've ever seen, and I'm still sticking to it to this day. But she slapped me on the standard American diet. Called me. Was it fat skinny? What's the phrase they throw around to everybody?
Skinny fat.
Smack in the face, man. Skinny fat. That's it. Yeah. Right. Meanwhile, it's 5 years ago. I'm playing. I'm playing select side rugby, but no, today I'm skinny fat, right? Because that much changed. But obviously that's the chip still on my shoulder. So she puts me on this 2,600 calorie 6 meal a day, oatmeal and eggs and shakes and rah, rah, rah. And she's like, just stick with it. And over the course of the next year, following it to the letter, I'm up to 240, 245. And I do have my strength. I do have marginal athleticism because she doesn't want me to run and I love to run. And I broke away with that. So I'm like 41 and I'm close to panic mode now. Everything that used to work is not working. So I went on LiveStrong app, standard American diet, panic mode, where I'm eating pretty much no fats, marginal carbs. I'm doing gross 2,000 or 2,100 calories a day with 400 to 600 calories of exercise burning off. So my net, I'm like 1,500, 1,600 calories. And dude, the only thing I'm not weighing before I put in my mouth is water. So that's the kind of control we have on this diet. And I'm maintaining 245. And the level of training eventually pushed me into having plantar fasciitis, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's,
Pain.
Yes.
dude, straight misery. I mean, seriously. Fill your shoes with thumbtacks and walk around all day. So
Oof.
Yep.
so I go see a podiatrist. I start getting the needles in the soles of my feet to try and calm that down. And they're like, well, you do the Dr. Google and you go with the real doctor, and they tell you, it could be from this, it could be activity, it could be from over tightening tendons, it could be. What it really comes down to is I was freaking fat. I mean, I can't lie to anybody there. I'm 245 pounds and trying to maintain the type of activity I was doing. I was 210 or 215. So I dealt with that for almost a year, and just every day was straight suck. I mean, walking hurt, and I can't lose weight, and I'm on this ridiculously low diet. My activity is now curtailed because of the plantar fasciitis. So the doctor that initially put me on the high blood pressure medication, I had ditched a couple of years before, and I have a new doctor who I really like. It was recommended to me, and I go in to see him at 42. I'm 41 last November, and I say, like, doc, something's wrong here. There's something that's not working. I just I gave him the quick rundown like I just did about the caloric volume and the output of energy. And he looks at my blood tests, and we're looking at the 5 precursors for metabolic syndrome: the triglycerides, cholesterol, obesity, blood pressure, and blood sugar. And I'm hitting 3 of those 5, and the other 2 I'm borderline on. He says, "Okay, you're insulin resistant. It's a precursor to type 2 diabetes, and you should go on my diet." And I look at this guy, and he's 6'3", 180-pound triathlete at the age of 60. And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, I'm like, and what the hell diet do you need? And he's like, "I do a ketogenic diet, and I do it for athletic support, and my whole family does it." So he's got his whole family on it. Everybody's off their meds, and I'm like, "All right, let's party." I'll give it a try. So he actually gave me his daily diet on a sheet of paper that he just hands out to his patients. So I leave the office, and I give my wife a call, and she knows I've been struggling with the weight, and I say, "Bridget, I talked to the doctor today, and he wants me to do a ketogenic diet, and I've done one in the past as a quick diet, as a tonic, but he wants me to do this for real." And my wife, and this is why I love her, first thing she says, "Okay, it looks like we're doing keto from here on out."
Yeah.
My wife is 130 pounds and 5'8" and smoking freaking hot and has no need for a diet, but she decided to do it with me for my health that day, that phone call, which I just, that's what love is, man. That's the real deal, and she and I dove into it with both feet, and I had that support, and I'm down and after the first month or two, actually, let me reel back a little bit. So I do the first week or two, and I'm already feeling the good results. I'm seeing that initial weight loss. I'm eating the foods I like to eat. I was never a sweet junkie. I was always a buffalo wing and steak guy. I had to give up my Guinness, no big deal. I'll replace it with the occasional Stolian Club, fine. But outside of that, these are the foods I want to eat, and I'm losing weight eating the foods I want to eat. So I remember when I was doing keto years ago about the athletic performance, and I wanted to go down that road. So I'm a big reader, so I wanted to research this. I didn't want to go off of one sheet of paper that my doctor gave me. So the first book I bought and read in 3 days was Leanne Vogel's The Keto Diet book, which I thought was excellent for what it is. There's a ton of recipes in there. It's very accessible. It's, I don't want to sound disparaging, but I jokingly called it like the Food Babe with blog book, but it was really good, really sound, really readable. I ran through it in 3 days, got a bunch of ideas for stuff, and she really puts things out there. Then I remembered the limitations on athletic performance that everybody talks about with keto. So I looked up a book specifically on Amazon, specifically dealing with ketogenic diets and athletes. And that's where I bumped into what I consider my holy grail, which is Finian Volek's Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance. So I got that book. I read that front to back and back to front. So I read it through and then started again on page 1 and read it again. And that really gave me that basis for how this really works. And from there I went on to read the book that preceded that, which Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living, which is really kind of geared more towards medical professionals or nutritionists, which is at times difficult reading, but I read that 2 or 3 times. So that was what really solidified my understanding of the diet. And I've been off to the races ever since, man. I'm loving it. I'm loving how I'm feeling. And I am out there trying to make converts of all these carb huffers and get them onto a proper diet as quick as I can.
That's a lot of information to take in, Ralph.
Hey,
you've done this
asked for
before,
the
I
story.
feel like.
Well, I certainly didn't want to get on a horn and be like, oh well, steak. So
No, that's
yeah.
awesome. So here's one of the things, because I've been jotting notes throughout your conversation over the last few minutes. So one of the things kind of not related to keto, but about your activity, the plantar fasciitis. I don't know that we've had a guest on before that talked about that. It is painful. I mean, I've known a number of people who've had it. I've had foot trouble in the past and whatnot, but not an official diagnosis of that. But pairing that up with being a rugby player and a guy who loves running everything, that's got to kind of impact you mentally as well, not being able to do something that you enjoy doing. Was keto the solution for the plantar fasciitis, or tell me a little bit about how you kind of work through that?
Well, the long-term repair of the plantar fasciitis was ultimately the weight reduction. I mean, I got the bad foot because I got fat. Getting modulating the plantar fasciitis through weight loss was ideal. And keto was at that time was the only way I was really able to lose weight because of that insulin resistance. So it was incredibly frustrating. And it's that downward spiral where you're working hard and getting no returns, and you're being denied those pleasurable things in life. Because I know this sounds crazy to some people, but I love running. I love going out for 3 or 4 or 5 miles and just counting your breaths and counting your footfalls and covering the distance and seeing the scenery change. It's a moment of peace and clarity. And you take that away, a depressive response is the most natural thing in your brain. I mean, how do you not get sad if something like that is taken away from you? And that drops in, and that's fed by the fact that I do get depressed about stuff like that. And mental health's always an issue. And when you're facing that depression on a daily basis from circumstances you can't control, if that doesn't affect you mentally, you're probably not emotionally engaged in your reality. You're probably disconnected in some way. So it was tough, and getting it back was huge for my mental and physical well-being.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I wanted to ask about, being a rugby player, I never see skinny rugby players. They're always beefy guys kind of thing that are out there, because it's not solely track and that you're just running to run kind of thing, but you are, you're playing football in a different format, so to speak. And so, even with BMI numbers and things like that, it doesn't sound like you were really that far off when you were playing rugby back in the college days and whatnot.
No, I mean, like I said, as long as I was able to use activity to modulate my weight, I was always comfortable. And when I was playing rugby at my peak in my late 20s, I was playing for that first division side. And I didn't even step on a scale, but I would guess I was 210 to 215, and I had some ab cuts. And I would go out and play A side and B side matches. So I'd be good for 160 minutes of rugby every Saturday.
Wow.
And I would end up with some bonking issues, some cramping issues. So I noticed there were times that when I got too lean, I would have calf cramps that would pull me out of the second half of a lot of matches. So I actually, in the August before the season kicked off, I would start eating a lot deliberately to get my body fat up to deal with those issues. And it really worked. And rugby is super demanding, and especially the position I played, which everybody that plays rugby would tell you their position is the hardest position, but they're all full of crap. I'm not lying. So I play a position called flanker, which is basically an outside linebacker and a fullback at the same time. And So you have a huge defensive component and a fairly solid offensive component, and you're constantly involved in play. You're not one of the guys that's hanging off and waiting for the long pass or the long kick. You're in it all the time. So to properly explain the average rugby match at my position would be like, imagine running a 5K, except
No.
yeah. Just don't think about it, Berto. Just get up one morning and do it. It's that
Okay,
simple.
yeah.
That's what he did last year.
Yeah,
He just got up and he did it one day.
That's why I'm not going to imagine it.
So you're running a 5K, except 20 seconds of every minute you're required to sprint. All right. Every 100 feet you got to fight a dude. Every 400 feet you got to fight 3 dudes, and this goes on for an hour and a half. And that's how you play rugby as a flanker. So that's your level of output. And while I was, when I was playing that initial A-side stuff in my 20s and 30s, I was able to do that on the traditional diet, and I did have bonking issues. When I came out of retirement at 41 last year and started playing A-side again for the spring and fall, I was in a strict ketogenic diet, completely fat adapted, and I didn't have any of the bonking issues. And I was able to perform at a level, from a fitness level that I think exceeded how I was playing when I was younger. Although because of just the overall age thing, that stuff beats you up. So, there were some things that were holding me back due to age and relative fitness, but endurance-wise, performance, output, everything was higher in that keto adapted state. And when, most of the guys in the team are 26, 27, get a couple 30, 32. And I would tell these guys I was in my 40s and they just wouldn't believe me. They're just like, no, sorry, you're not. You got to tell that story to somebody else, dude. And, the coach, who's 2 years older than me, was like, no, he's really 42. It's the truth.
Yeah, keto is the fountain of youth. I keep telling everyone, and I always make the joke too, because I just turned 40 this year, and and I was turning 40. I was perfectly comfortable with turning 40, but not one single one of my friends like gave me any crap about being 40, about being over the hill, about being old man. I got it from no one. I was just kind of just sat back. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty nice. That's a good feeling right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It keeps you young, and you know what? Living healthy, it keeps you young. And the nice thing about keto is you end up accidentally not having sugar and not having gluten and not having so much crap. And my wife and I laugh about it all the time because we bump into people we went to high school with, and it's like, dude, what have you been doing for the last 20 years that you're like this? You go from prom king to friggin' coal miner in the blink of an eye. What happened? Friggin' pizza is what happened, pizza, pasta, and too much beer. And next thing you know, the leather sleeve athlete from high school is like a friggin' train wreck.
Yeah, that is very true. I was just a random question, something that you said a little bit ago that kind of stuck with me is like, I'm guessing it was probably similar to me when like I was in my early mid 20s and I was in martial arts and lifting weights like literally 15 hours a week on top of that, on top of my full-time job. But like at that time for me, being that age, like there was no amount of food I could possibly eat, keto or not, or junk food or whatever, that could keep up with my activity level. So for me, like at that time in my life, I could eat and drink whatever I wanted because my physical output was just so insanely high that there was almost no amount of calories that I could consume that would really make a difference in my weight. And it sounds like what you were going through with rugby was very, very similar.
Yeah, I mean, once you get up to that level of output, it's crazy. And after I graduated college and I was coaching the 2 teams at school, I was coaching the men's team and the women's team. I was working as a bartender. I was only doing 4 days a week and working nights. But I realized that I would be good to run 30 to 35 miles a week, depending on my schedule, because I was just getting up every morning and doing 4 to 6 miles, depending on how I felt, and coming back and training. So, like when you think about that output, you're burning 1,500 to 2,000 calories above your basal metabolic rate, and you can really eat whatever the hell you want. That and being young and healthy liver ish, because I was still just out of college. But it's just that volume, and your body's still able to process everything properly, and you're enzymatically you're healthy, and it was just great. But I played that out in pretty short order, and by the time like I said, by the time I'm 35, that was the first writing on the wall that something was wrong, and I was in full panic mode 5 years later, and that's that. There's nothing worse than being scared about your own body.
Yep. So that's such an interesting part of all of this, because therefore, for so many people, that you see online in the lifting communities, or just athletes in general, they'll go, oh, just, calories in, calories in, calories out, over and over and over again. And the thing that we're seeing more and more is that calories in, calories out only works up to a point. Whenever you start factoring in other things, insulin resistance, diabetes, and all of the other metabolic disorder, yeah, it doesn't matter if you starve yourself or not. You have to pick specific things to eat, because those are what you can actually eat, and not maintain or gain weight. So it's good to hear another example of that. Calories in, calories out wasn't the whole thing. Eventually, it stopped working.
And to kind of piggyback on that, like I'm involved in a bunch of different fitness groups on Facebook, and some of them keto, some of them not. And and some of these, like, and I've asked the question because they're just like, oh, I'm going on this diet. These guys are just overweight and stuff, and they're like, I got my macros set. I'm eating 1,200 calories a day, and I'm going to the gym 4 days a week, and this, that, and the other. And every once in a while, I'll ask the question. I'm like, so what are you going to do when 1,200 calories a day, if that just happens to stop working? They're like, oh, well, I'll just reduce it. I'm like, okay, so in theory, what's going to happen when you hit zero? You got a plan for, if you're just going to keep reducing, like if this is your solid plan, you're just going to keep reducing. I go, eventually you're going to end up at zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, then I got to eat some more. I'm like, well, what do you do to eat some more? And like, they don't have an answer. They don't know.
Yep.
They're just kind of just going by what they hear. And then then I'll just throw in there. I'm like, for reference, I'm like, dude, I'm 40 years old. I'm 5'8". I'm like, 180 something 5 pounds. I go pretty lean. I was like, I'm actually losing body fat right now on 3,000 calories a day and 250 grams of fat. And then the collective minds explode. And I was just like, I spent a long time, ramping up my my metabolism. And, we had Dana, and he was the one who said the same way, where his biggest thing was he wanted to make sure he eats enough, because he understands that if you got to start pulling on that calorie lever to start losing weight, he wants to make sure he's got enough room to start with. He doesn't want to start real low and have nowhere to go with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one thing that I think the mistakes is a fundamental one. Calories are a measurement of heat, and heat is a process of physics. So if we're talking about heating up an object, calories is what we're talking about. Let's not confuse physics with biology. Okay. And that's what happens to a lot of guys that are in my position, a lot of guys that end up being on keto and being successful with it, is calories are calories if all systems are functioning properly. But we get here because things are not right.
Yep.
So, right now I'm about halfway through Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes. And we're just going through this section where we're talking about how the muscles and the liver process fructose versus sucrose versus other. And there's literally a chemical logjam in your liver because it's unable to clear these volumes of sugars, even the good sugar fructose, in the time in which it's applied to the body. So you can't go calories in, calories out if there are limiting factors and reagent factors that are involved in the chemistry of digestion. It's just not that simple. And to reduce biology to physics, it's asinine to say the least.
One thing I want to, shifting gears a little bit here, Ralph. We didn't really talk about your family and whatnot growing up. You said, and I can totally associate being in the Sears Husky Jeans section. I more than you know. Were you the only one like that in your family? Were others big boned or whatever you want to call it back in the day, or what was that like?
Well, I was an only child, so there's no generational comparison, but both my parents were heavy.
Okay.
My father played football in college, and he slimmed down a lot afterwards, but all my life growing up, he was heavy. And he even got to the point where, he was morbidly obese. He was in the 350 range. Mom was heavy as well, and was actually the one that took me to the first Weight Watchers meeting, was never able to get down to the pre-me weight, which thankfully she doesn't rub in my face constantly. But Mom also suffers from Crohn's disease, which was late in diagnosis, and she still suffers from it. And Berto, I can't tell you how many times I shared your story with her on the podcast to try and get her to come over here with us. They're constantly changing her medication. She's never fully happy. There's always something off, and it sucks. She's had a surgery because of it. She's has flares where she's just garbage for weeks at a time. For a while before I went keto, I felt like I was starting to fall into that with the bloating and discomfort, gas, the 15 bathroom runs during the course of the day. I started to get there. So I started to worry if that Crohn's disease was going to be my genetic legacy, so that was a concern. And once I got into the quality keto diet, that just went away. It was no longer an issue. But I still, like, Berto, if I could get you and Mom on the phone call together, I wish you could talk some sense into this lady, because she's killing me. Like, I try and explain to her, I'm like, look at what has done for me, Mom. You and I share some genetics, almost 50%. Give it a friggin' try. And I just can't get her to take the jump.
Yeah, it gets tricky. People are I don't even know how to explain it, especially when you're talking to your own family and your or friends you really care about, and you see they're in bad shape, and you're like to us, it's like it's this easy. This is all you have to do. Like, one of my friends that reached out to me, he's also Mexican, and he was saying that he's just realized he was type 2 diabetic and this and that. And I'm like, well, look, there's good news and there's bad news, right? I go, good news is it's controllable by diet. Bad news is you got to go low carb. And he's like, dude, we're Mexican. We can't go low carb. I'm like, who's we? I go, dude, I'm on year 3, brother. And he's just like, what? He had no idea. I'm like, look, I'm not saying that, like, it's not the greatest thing in the world if you're trying to stick to the traditions that you grew up with and you go to your mom's house every weekend for dinner. That ain't gonna fly. I go, but at the same time, like, if these traditions are literally killing you, what is there to hang on to? What's going to be in the end if the food that we're eating, that we're accustomed to eating, and the way we're accustomed to living is literally killing us by diabetes and obesity? Then why are we trying to pass that tradition down just because it tastes good? It's hard to swallow. I guess that's a really good pun there. But I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't like, and I say all the time, I don't try really hard not to live my life in those shady gray areas. I kind of like things either black or white. Either it's going to help me or it's not. And yeah, sure, I miss my mom's cooking. Like, she'll come down here and visit, and she'll make, like, the rice pudding that, like, we grew up with, is like a sweet rice pudding, and I'll crack the lid off that thing and I'll inhale it like I was a crack fiend. But I will rarely ever eat any.
Yeah, I mean, well, if the legacy you're receiving is a broken one, then it's time to break that cycle. I have one side of my family is Italian, the other side's Irish. So I got pasta eaters and wine drinkers on one side, and beer drinkers and beef eaters on the other side.
Yep.
You put that stuff together, and it's just not healthy. Not to mention the fact that 20 years ago, everybody friggin' smoked. 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's just another example of that fractured legacy that you have to deliberately put down and walk away from. And as far as the going keto, people tell me, oh, that's a lot you got to give up. That's a lot of decisions, a lot of choices you got to make. And for me, it's one choice, and it's one choice every day. And to be honest, I equate it to people being in recovery. I have friends and family that are recovering alcoholics, and they make a big choice every day to not drink. And that's it. And I get up in the morning and I make that choice to not eat carbs, because I am in the Alberto keto fascist group where I don't eat carbs. That's it. I don't cheat. I don't have cheat days.
Yeah.
I don't miss bread. I'm able to stay in the wheelhouse of my favorite foods, but it's one big choice I make every day, and I spend all day making it, and I stay with it. And I'm lucky that I don't get that sugar fix or that food addiction kind of mentality, because keto's basically cured that. Like, I used to have a love-hate relationship with food where, do I eat? Do I try and get the protein? Am I suffering? Am I getting a sugar high? Now all that's normalized, and I just kind of eat what I want to eat, and I kind of move beyond that. And if I want to sneak a bite of a Snickers bar, I have a half of the Snickers bar for my 3 grams of carbs for today, and that scratches the itch, and I move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very lucky like that, to not have that kind of craving mentality. But for the most part, I'm keto fascist. It's that choice. It's that way. It's that way every day.
Yeah. So I'm going to circle back a little bit to the parent thing. My kind of in contrast to your mom, my mom is desperately trying. But whenever I was last home, she was still drinking Diet Cokes and still using traditional table salt. And I tried to say, that's not good, or the Dr. Pepper that wasn't even diet, things that she just felt like she couldn't live without. And I think there's a point whenever you get to a certain age. My mom's 73 right now, so at least I'm pretty sure I'm not quoting that under. Hopefully, I'm not quoting that over what she actually is. But not that she listens. I'm pretty sure she doesn't listen. But she's up there, and there's a point that you go, well, how miserable do I have to be before, or in the last years of my life, do I really want to be miserable? And I would counter to that in the last years of your life, try to make it so that you can have an enjoyable, healthy life for the rest of the days that you can. So a little bit of sacrifice of things like bread is worth it. That's the decision I made at 35 too. At 35, I said, thus far, no more. I know the plan that I need because this seems to be the one that's working. And so that's something that we all have to come to that point, that line of demarcation where it's like, okay, this is it. Whatever it is for us. So, well, let's start to wrap up. Any other questions, Jim, Alberto?
I want to know what was on the doctor's keto plan that he gave you.
I like it.
What
great
what did
question.
you start with?
Oh, the one page jammy.
Yeah.
He actually incorporated intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet all in one sheet of paper. I wish I still had it handy. It was hanging on the fridge forever.
Uh-huh.
But he would do no food initially for the course of the day, and he described it to me in a caveman lifestyle evolutionary context, which I thought was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nuts for quick energy. Your first meal of the day is at lunch, which he would do a spinach and olive oil kind of smoothie. And then he would have one real food meal of the day of chicken or steak or whatever. So he's kind of doing OMAD, but he would have that large smoothie shake. So I adapted that because I don't want to do the shake thing. It was never really worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would no food until noon or 12:30, and I would have a spinach salad with a protein base, spinach, chicken, whatever. Supplement with nuts, and then have a keto dinner. But I mean, his one sheet of paper, that spinach smoothie, which I turned into the salad lunch, and then the dinner. That was me for the first week or two until I got through the first couple keto books I read. And like I said, I mean, you look at my doctor's phenomenal. You look at this guy; he's in his early 60s, and he could pass for 40 with no problem, and he's super athletic. And it was just very straightforward. Like I could see that a lot of his patients probably did this for a week and then just jumped off the bandwagon. But following his one sheet of paper for a week with slight adjustments gave me the time to figure it out for myself, and that was really the step up that I needed.
Awesome.
So at this point, let's go through a day in the life food wise. What's your what did you eat today?
Oh, today was a great day. Steak twice. In the morning I wake up. I'm up early with my wife. We're up before 6. I'll have a cup of coffee with a tablespoon of half and half in a Splenda, and I'll do that again an hour and a half later after I drop my daughter off at school. So I'm kind of intermittent fasting, but I'm really only putting down about 40 calories before my first meal at 12:30 or so. Today I ran to the store to grab dinner, so I picked up. I saw a manager's special of a porterhouse steak, nice 3/4 pound T-bone. So I brought that home, grilled that up for lunch in some olive oil and butter. Had a kosher pickle on the side as my greens. So that was a pretty fantastic lunch. And dinner I did Brussels sprouts, cauliflower mash, and pan fried ribeyes in olive oil and butter with fresh garlic. And that was for the three of us. Like I said, my wife is 100% keto too. So the only thing we really changed for our daughter, Siobhan, who's 6, is we give her real mashed potatoes, not fake. And for the most part, she eats a steak and the vegetables, and we gotta muggle with her a little bit to eat her potatoes, but nobody's pushing that too hard. She's hale and hearty, and for a 6-year-old girl, she's very muscular. She's very athletic. There's not an extra ounce of weight on her, so we kind of let her self-regulate as far as food goes. But for me, I am 2 steaks, 1 pickle, and Brussels sprouts in, and today was a good day.
Yeah, that sounds great. And not only that, I mean, if you both you and your wife are keto and pretty much sugar free, like a lot of that is gonna rub off on your daughter, just the way it is, whether like or not. Like my kids, I don't restrict the way they eat whatsoever. But if you were to compare their diets, I would say the vast majority of the kids' diets around here, like they're eating a lot cleaner. They're allowed their one piece of candy after lunch. They still have Halloween candy. They don't really crave sweets. They've never drank soda in their life, either of them, other than like soda water. Like orange juice might be the sweetest thing that they actually get to consume, that they choose to consume. And other than that, they just pretty much survive off water and veggies and protein. And like every once in a while, my 9-year-old will be dinner time and I'll make hamburgers, and she'll just like, I just want a hamburger bun or a hamburger patty. I'm sorry. I just want a hamburger patty. I'm like, you want anything to go with it? No, nope, just a hamburger patty. And she'll kill a quarter pound of ground beef on her own. I'm like, all right, I'm not worried about you.
Nice.
The 6-year-old is the same way, but like 6-year-old she will, the only thing she will ask you is if it's spicy. Outside of it being spicy, this kid will eat anything and everything you put in front of her, and most of the time it's what we're cooking. So it's anything from scallops to shrimp, steak to whatever veggies we happen to have on hand, and the kid will devour it all and finish it off with like a half an apple.
Yeah. Well, no, but you hit it right there. It's what you're cooking. And like I said before, one of the great things about keto, you back into not having processed, not having sugar, not having this, not having that. And we still make a point of having the family meal. We all sit down and have dinner together. We're not doing it in front of TV, which is, something that it's a psychological thing for me personally. But like, my daughter's eating cooked and home prepared food. We're not
Yes.
stopping at McDonald's on the way home. We're not, and I'll be honest, even if you're going to do McDonald's with no bun, it's still a chemical train wreck when it comes down to it. These are processed burgers that are designed to be good for 2 weeks, whether or not they're refrigerated. Like, come on, man. I don't want my kid eating that stuff. I'd much rather cook up a nice fatty ribeye in some butter and her have it, because I know that's such a cleaner meal, because she's still metabolically efficient and proper. Like, she's not even, she's still using those pathways properly. She's still got 100% of her digestive function, her enzymatic function that I don't have. So, she's just eating home cooked food. And like you said, you see it in their behavior. And when you contrast it with their friends that are knocking back sugar sticks and living on Twix and stopping for Happy Meals,
Mm-hmm.
you got to, for a change, as a parent, you feel like you're doing something right.
Yeah. How about it?
Finally, after all this time.
Like, well, we got one thing. Like, it's funny because our wife will have the joke. Like, she'll come home from work. She's like, "How is everybody?" I'm like, "Well, all three are still breathing, so it was a good day."
That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, any other things that we didn't cover that you'd like to cover, Ralph? And we've gone through quite a bit, so I want to make sure that we get you back to your wife and all of that before it gets too terribly late there on the East Coast.
There is one thing I do want to mention. I was lucky enough to have a personal friend who's also a physician shepherd me through this whole thing. Dr. James Ferretti, who is a member of the group, and he's been super helpful, and you guys should absolutely think about having him on as a guest, because he's a physician and very good at his job. He also speaks at different functions around the country. Right after I started doing this, when I read the first Phinney and Volek book about low carb performance, I sent him a copy. I just Amazoned it right to him. I was like, "Hey, Jim, do me a favor. We've been friends forever. I want to make sure my primary physician isn't suffering from confirmation bias, and I'm not killing myself with a fad diet. I want you to read this book and tell me what to do." This guy read the book and was in ketosis before he finished it. He was so convinced. He's also a long distance runner and a jiu-jitsu guy, and he is smashing his personal records every time he goes out.
That
Like,
is awesome.
he went out and ran a 10K and trimmed 3 minutes off his personal best, and he's a trained
Oh
runner. So it's
wow.
not like he started last month and this is his new personal best. So he's running regularly. And I mean, and Berta, you just said it right there. Oh wow, the only way you're knocking 3 minutes off your 10K is if you're juicing. Like, let's be completely honest. And he's not. He's just on keto. And he and I always say back and forth, doing athletic events or sports, being fat adapted is like playing video games with a cheat code.
It
And
really is.
yeah, it's crazy, man. Everybody's trying to keep up with you, and you just don't get tired, you don't get hungry, you don't bunk, you just keep pushing, and you keep getting better all the time. And so I guess you guys, you did your shout out, so that's my shout out. Thank you, Doc
That's
Ferretti.
fantastic.
for being there for me and being there with me. So now he's in the group and he's a keto lifer like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, keep an eye out for him in the forum. He's not too active, but if you guys ever want to get a position on stage,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to him because he definitely knows the ins and outs.
I think we absolutely have to.
Yes, I think so. I think so. That goes on the list of potential guests, and we'll try to get in contact with him and have him on. We'd love to hear his story too. Okay. Well, any other parting shots before we go into contact information?
Oh, we're good, man. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. It was a great conversation. Yeah, looking forward to doing this again sometime.
Agreed.
Hey, guys, thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It's nice to get the word out, and it's such a great place to be. I love the group. I've shared some non-scale victories and some non-scale tragedies in the group. I've had kind of an up and down year, and it's not about weight loss. It's about the brotherhood, and I appreciate that. So thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Jim, any other business to attend to?
No, I just echo the compliments and appreciate the honesty, straightforwardness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. It's good info. And like I said earlier about plantar fasciitis and whatnot, as Chris and Alberto and I have done this podcast for the last several months, we've talked to a number of guys who have had some kind of ailment, big and little. I mean, everything is big to the individual, obviously, but this is the first, I believe this is the first one where we've talked about that particular ailment, and the fact that your weight loss and your health improved, but also just being able to walk comfortably again is just a testament to how good keto can be.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, let's go through some social information, then I'll wrap us up. Ralph, how can people get connected with you online outside of the group?
I am on Facebook, Ralph Citarella Jr., and I'm also on Twitter at Rugby Ralphie.
Very cool.
Great handle, by the way.
Yeah, I like it.
It's right. It's not quite Keto Cholo, but I got to do it.
Very cool. Well, Jim, go ahead and give us your social.
I don't have a good one. I guess that may need to be a belated New Year's resolution because you all have cool names and whatnot. Mine's just Jim Inman Jr. So find me in the group, find me on Instagram, and maybe there'll be a creative one coming in later months.
You just got to add the in front of it, so you're the Jim Inman Jr.
Oh,
the one and only.
Oh. I'll save my official radio nickname for after the show. So.
Alberto.
Instagram at the Keto Cholo, and obviously the Man's Club on Facebook. I'm always floating around there.
Yep. I am at Duckman Keto on Instagram, and always on the group, always in front of a device that's somehow connected. I will probably see your tag for me within moments. So that's it for this week. Let's go ahead just to recap how people can connect with us. You can connect with us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. You can check out our website at theketomansclub.com. You can email us at ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com, or you can give us a phone call and leave us a voicemail. There's only been a couple people who've done it so far. Luckily, it's a free service, so use it, as much as you'd like to. I almost regret saying that. And the phone number.
We've gotten some interesting messages. So there's some people that be using it for their own entertainment. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that because it was for our entertainment as well.
Yeah, we got some entertainment out of it for sure. That phone number is 512-518-6161. So feel free to reach out in any of those ways. If you have comments, questions, as mentioned before, if you get the time, please go on to iTunes or to Apple Podcasts is the official name. I'm working for the company. I should probably say it right. Go into Apple Podcast and make sure that leave a rating, a comment. Those things go a long way. Even something simple and small, just a few moments of your time on that goes a long way in making an impact on the algorithm. So thank you for that. We look forward to connecting with you in any way that we can, seeing you in the group. We have the beginners group and the main group. So definitely, if you're just getting started, check out the beginners group. We're starting to build some of those really great resources that are going to help you get off on the right foot with your ketogenic journey. And it's already developing into a really great, tight-knit community that's going to help you along and root for you along the way. So that's it for this week. Until next week, make sure to eat meat, lift heavy, sleep, and repeat. Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Would you help us spread the word about the Keto Man's Club by sharing with your friends and family? We're available on all podcast platforms, so just search for Keto Man's Club and you'll find us. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. Our web address leads to our Facebook group, theketomansclub.com. That's TheKetoMansClub.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out via email to KetoMansClubPodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.